What's up, Travel Chronicles? I'm not sure what chapter this is. It's maybe 77, something. It's in the title. I'll figure it out by then. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on coronavirus, but it's getting crazy again. And it's quite remarkable that it happens right when it gets cold. Right when people would start getting a lot of colds, which is a coronavirus itself. This COVID-19 is also a coronavirus, so I wonder if the tests are so accurate that they can discriminate between different coronaviruses. Is that possible? Or is it possible we're just catching a lot of colds? The state of Ohio has now entered a curfew, so they're locking people down from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. That's apparently when coronavirus is out looking for people. So now that people aren't allowed out between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., it'll probably go away. So ridiculous. I wonder if people actually read the rules that they're writing for other people. And it's not about, I was on Twitter this morning. Twitter is about the worst place to go for anything. It is. It's literally a cesspool of the lowest IQ people spouting their ideas, and that is if they're real people at all. Because looking through the comments that the governor posted in the last 2 days, I've spotted 4 or 5 accounts that there's no way it's a real person. It just doesn't even look right. So I reported them, doing my duty to try and help out Twitter, but I know they won't do anything because they don't care. They want as many accounts. They don't care if they're computer generated or not. The one account literally only posted one tweet. It was a copy and paste, and they copied and pasted it about 200 times in one day. And the account had been around since May or March. The account claimed that she had quit her job in March, and then and now there's all these cases at the place at the nursing home that she worked at, and people that worked there, and she's glad that she quit because her significant other her husband had an underlying condition, and she felt like she had to quit to save it. It's just, but the account had posted it 100 times, so it's okay, as responses to response. It was weird. It's completely something not a person would do. Whatever was triggering it to respond with that, it tripped a bunch. It said as of 11/18, so it was pulling the date out of somewhere. It was really weird. But that's AI and social media does. It's oh man, this looks like a real, why would you think it's not a real person? But people are just so dishonest, disingenuous when you're reading through this stuff. Your time doesn't want to be taken up, one, by something that is generated by a computer. I don't want to see that. They really need to clean it up. I'm thinking about going to Parlor just to see what it's like. I'm not that. The only thing I really want social media for is just to see local sports scores. That's about it. All of the other drama and stuff, and even for entertainment now, or looking at sports teams, I really don't. It's neat to see stuff as it's happening in the moment, but just people issuing a decree and then people responding to it, it's a complete total waste of time. Because I know they're not looking at my response either. Even though I'll post the data from the health department. Anyway, I don't know what the end game is. There's no end game. When it first happened in March or February, kind of made sense. Because we didn't know what was going to happen. Oh man, the cases could explode. Hospitals could be overrun. This could be really bad. Now they're saying, well, we don't want to overrun the hospitals. So we got to limit, people being out, interactions. Okay, if you look at the hospitals right now, they're at 10%, a little over 10% on capacity as far as COVID patients are concerned. And I think they're less than 80 overall. like, and ideally hospitals want to run about 80% capacity from what I've read. I don't know if that's true or not, because I've seen that on Twitter. But I mean, it kind of made sense, the guy's argument. And then you have ICU beds are maybe slightly over 20%. So you've seen a little bit more than double in the last 18 days. So we're over 2 weeks, and it's like, oh man, if it doubles again in another 2 weeks, we'll be at 20% on bed capacity in hospitals and 40% in ICU. Right now, according to the charts, they have the capacity. Now, they would be at near 100%. But I think more what the problem is that hospitals don't want to cordon off a floor or 2 floors or 3 floors to be COVID floors and have a massive COVID response, because that restricts other people that they're allowed to get in. But the other thing that they're not doing is calling for people to not get elective procedures, is what they did in March and February. Was, hey, if you have an elective procedure, push it off, which is why my mom's surgery got pushed back to May. And then she was finally able to have it when the hospitals realized, hey, we're not getting flooded with people like we thought we were. Let's go ahead and actually do stuff. We want you to come back. Don't be worried. Yeah, even though we're a hospital and yeah, there are COVID patients here, they're sequestered. And I think they did such a good job at locking those floors down that now they don't want to expand into any other parts of the hospital. So even though the COVID patients are 10% of hospital capacity, the problem is the areas they've cordoned off for COVID are probably close to 100%, and the hospitals don't want to rearrange themselves, which is a problem because, hey, cold and flu season's coming. You have to know there's going to be, some major false positives coming through, and people want to be hospitalized and having other problems that are going to show up as COVID when it's really not. They're going to have to go into these units. So it's just, there's a little short-sighted by the hospitals, in my opinion. And now it's coming back on the public to, you can't go out at 10 o'clock at night. I'm not going to be out at 10 o'clock at night anyway. But I mean, it's a little ridiculous. The lack of planning and foresight on their part is now everybody else's problem. Okay, now that's out of the way. The thing I really want to talk about that I've been thinking about lately is the solfeggio tones. I want to say that right, solfeggio, because I'll look at it and I'll call it solfeggio, and I just like to throw extra letters in words, apparently, when I come up with, after I read them, because whatever I read, like the first time, like that's what gets stuck in my head, and I don't know how I read it the first time, but solfeggio got stuck in my mind, even though there's no L at the end. It's solfeggio, I think. I've never heard it actually pronounced, but I think if you're looking at it, that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, when I used to do my Wim Hof in the morning, I would use YouTube. And then after that, I would do like a short meditation, and I would put one of those solfeggio tones on. And there's, different hertz that they play at, and they allegedly do different things, right? 528 hertz is supposed to help repair muscle damage, repair your body's overall wellness. I'm just going to try to adjust that. But I listen to Meditative Minds on YouTube, and there's 9 different tones, okay? And it works out, there's one in the 100 hertz range, 200, 300, 400, 500, all the way up to 900. And the hertz are 174, 285, 396, 417, 528, 639, 741, 852, and 963. And if you look at like a telephone keypad, what these tones are, they're actually divided up into 3 groups. So you have the 147 group, the 258 group, and the 369 group. And each one of those, the numbers are recombined, the 3 different times, to make 3 different tones to fill up each 100. And, numerically speaking, the first 3 tones are 111 apart from each other. The second 3 tones are 111 apart from each other. And the third 3 tones are 111 apart from each other. It's just, that's how math works. Because you're taking like 1, 2, 3, And then you're taking the bottom number, 7, 8, 9, and then the middle, 4, 5, 6. And then for the second group, you're taking the middle, 4, 5, and 6. The top, 1, 2, and 3, and then the bottom. And then the last one, you're taking the bottom, the middle, and the top. And it's just, it's a different order. That's the progression of the orders, and you're not overlapping or duplicating the last two numbers you couldn't. It'd be impossible. So, and no numbers in any spot more than one time. That's the thing. Now, the interesting thing, it's taken from the Bible. Okay, or is it like in the 10th century or something? A monk or a saint, somebody sat down and figured out like 6 of the tones, and I think the ones they figured out was not the 174, the 417s, and the 741. I don't think that group was in there to start with. I think they were added in later. It is what kind of makes sense to me. Now, the thing that doesn't make sense is, maybe I need to look at this. Like, I've looked at it a little bit numerically. If you add up each group, so if you add up the 1, 2, and 3 groups total, the total's 1332 for the number 1 group. Then it's 1665, and then 1998. And if you look at the number, there's nothing spectacular about any of those numbers. But if you subtract one from the highest one, middle, lower, it's 333 hertz between each one, which makes sense. Because each one, the total difference would be 3, and then you're just doing it 3 times, and then it'd be 333. So it actually makes sense. So it's kind of a neat mathematical trip. Now, if you take the top one, 1998, and subtract 1332, you get 666 hertz, which is the number of the beast, the mark of the beast, right? And that, I haven't figured out where it's taken from, where these tones come from in numbers. But, numerically, I mean, that actually kind of, it kind of makes sense if it was biblical, where it would lead to and how you get these different things. And I just kind of wonder, Numbers is a really odd book anyway, because it's talking about like the census and then moving, and when it says numbers, there's a bunch of numbers in that book. You just kind of wonder if Moses was trying to smuggle out like some knowledge that they gleaned from the Egyptians, because the Egyptian culture at the time would have been, the high mark of intelligence, for human beings. So you just, you wonder if they didn't take something that they had, kind of, disguise it, code it in this religious manuscript, and then make it something that somebody could use later, but they have to be able to kind of decode what he was writing about. Now, I'm not that far in yet. Maybe I'll try to get into more of a study of numbers in itself and these tones, but the 963 tone is what they call the God tone, and it's supposed to open up your pineal gland. I'm not sure what all that means, but it's just like a higher elevated thing. Now, the thing numerically that doesn't make any sense to me is that biblically speaking, numbers that matter, or at least have religious significance, are 3, 7, and 12. Like I think are probably the 3 highest, religiously significant numbers. So the number 3, that's covered multiple times in this. 9, having 9 total tones doesn't make sense. So, or only having 6 doesn't make sense. So I don't know if there's some combination of those groups, where the 6 becomes a 7, And it would make sense if 417 isn't a tone, because it's so close to 528 and 396, that it wouldn't make sense. And maybe 174 is not, and 714 is almost, it's 113 away from, I think, right? Like it's a reasonable amount. Maybe it's 130 some away, but it's a reasonable amount away from the previous one, from the 639. Maybe it's less than 100. 741. It's like 100, whatever it is. Like it's a reasonable amount. But it's just something I'm thinking about. Maybe if that jars somebody else's memory for something else, cool. Hope it does. I'd like to understand it more, because I think there's more, obviously in that book and in the Bible itself, that we don't understand a whole lot of. We've kind of, not tried to find anything, and we just look at the words and go, well, this is what these words are. And I think there's a lot more deeper meaning, to things that could be, incredibly beneficial to us, one, while we're living our lives, and, two, to help aim for something beyond this life. Well, it would be neat, and people, that's all that they had to do was sit around and figure this stuff out. Life was a lot simpler before, right? You could just dedicate all of your mind power, and I think we have a lot more stuff at our disposal to use now, where we can figure things out easier, but we're so distracted by certain things, and we have so many, different things in our lives, a long commute, work, following the kids doing stuff, or doing stuff at home afterwards, that you don't have a lot of time to just sit down and study and, really dig into it to try to understand something at a deeper level. So, all right, well, that's all I got. Be careful. Be COVID free. See you later.